A line is a continuous dot on a surface. There are two types of lines, actual lines, and here are some visual examples of actual lines, and implied lines. Although we don't see these lines, this painting represents an example of an implied line via eye contact as the child looks towards the woman in the painting. Actual lines are lines we can physically see, like the pavement of the lines on the roads, or the prints of lines on clothing. In art, lines that are actual lines are lines that are painted, like the picture here, carved, like the infinity knot made of wood in this image here. They can also be etched, drawn, sewn, folded, and sculpted, and many other examples apply as it regards to how many ways artists can create actual lines in artwork. If you can physically see it, then it is an actual line. Implied lines, however, are lines that are not seen. Unlike actual lines, these lines are felt and sensed. Like we can sense a line can be drawn with this picture here of the basketball player jumping towards the ball, or this basketball player jumping to dunk the ball into the hoop. Other examples of implied line, and I'm using sports because this is a great way to introduce implied lines by looking at sports images where we see the movement of the soccer player. His foot is in motion. Although it is a still picture, we sense the movement of his foot going towards the ball so that he can kick the ball in the goal. We can sense the baseball player in the orange is jumping up, or even that he's about to fall down after having avoided running into his opponent that is sliding in this direction to the base. We also see that the player is looking in a certain direction, and that is also an implied line. So implied lines are made by movement and eye contact. Two examples of implied line. In this picture or image of a solar system, we see that the implied line creates a circular motion. So we can start at one point, follow the solar system with our eyes, going all the way around until we get back to where we started. Can implied lines and actual lines exist together in an artwork? Yes. In this sculpture, although this is an example of implied line, we also see actual lines in the plaid shirts, patterns of his shirt and her dress. These two sculptures actually also display examples of implied line via eye contact. Do you understand the difference of implied line and actual line? Implied line will be the eye contact. We do not see these lines, but we can feel or sense when someone's looking a certain direction. And this can be conveyed in the artwork. This right here is an example of actual line, which is printed on the plaid shirt of the sculpted man. Implied line is sensed in the direction of this young man looking towards a certain direction. The rocking of the boat can create an implied line that is very curvular and diagonal. We also sense that the person looking away from the 1, 2, 3, 4 sharks could dictate that the artist is saying that the person does not worry about the sharks while he is at sea. Again, going back to this image from before, the eye contact between the woman and the child is an example of an implied line. We also see implied line in the body language of the two arms of the woman wrapped around the child, and then of course the child wraps her arms, or her hands are wrapped around the woman's arm, notating an additional sign of affection between the two subjects in the painting. Actual lines can be broken down into two additional categories: geometric lines and organic lines. Geometric lines are lines that we see in math. Organic lines are free-form lines. These lines are not necessarily angles or arcs like math lines. These lines are naturally occurring lines, like the natural occurring lines in this pebble, or the natural occurring folds in the sand of the Sahara Desert. Organic line examples also include the veins of the leaves, and even in this linear looking sculpture of an organic line. Organic lines in nature include the ripple effect that you see in puddles when you drop a pebble into water and the vibrations that it causes. Those are natural occurrences of organic lines. Also, such organic lines can be reflected in artwork. As we see in this painting here, the lines that are in the painting that are painted on top of the canvas are examples of organic lines. Again, organic lines are free-form lines, and geometric lines are lines that we see in math, like angles or arcs. Okay? So we've just covered the concept of a binary opposite. What are the elements of art? I identified for you that the elements of art are line, shape, color, form, value, space, and texture. Then I went further to review the slides on the different categories or qualities of line. And this include actual lines, implied lines, and then the different types of actual lines are geometric actual lines and organic actual lines. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to review what I've just covered in these last few slides. Welcome back. The vocabulary terms that we have just reviewed are binary opposite, line, actual line, implied line, geometric line, and organic line. Let's go ahead and move forward to cover shape, geometric shape, organic shape, form, geometric form, organic form, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and one-dimensional. A shape is a flat two-dimensional object with a length and a height. There are two types of shapes, geometric shapes and organic shapes, very similar to the categories of line, which were geometric line and organic line. Geometric shapes are shapes found in math, like the rectangle, circle, or pentagon on the right-hand side, and of course, like the image example that I showed you in the previous slide that is right here on the bottom left-hand corner. Geometric shapes are measurable. Therefore, we can find area or the perimeter of geometric shapes because these are shapes that are measurable in math. On the contrary, organic shapes are free-form shapes. These shapes are like your feather or this organic shape of a blob or this heart or even the etchings of the patterns that are etched or carved onto the ceramic base on the right-hand side of the slide. These different examples of free-form shapes or organic, therefore they're not as measurable like math shapes or geometric shapes. Form is a three-dimensional object with a length, width, and a height. There are two types of forms very similar to shape and line: geometric forms and organic forms. Geometric forms include forms found in math. Let me flip back to the previous slide. In this image here, we see the pyramid, the cylinder, we see the sphere, we see the cone, and an array of other geometric forms arranged in this artwork. These are all examples that we see in math that are measurable, as in we can find the volume and surface area of these three-dimensional forms in math. Unlike geometric forms, like the origami paper folding sculptures in these images here, organic forms are forms that are not measurable in math, or not as easily measurable in math. Like the piece of fruit here, the lemon, is an organic form, or any other kind of fruit is an organic form. Shells that you see on the seashore are examples of organic forms. Even a photographer that captures a drop of water in this image example is an example of an organic form. In that particular moment, we capture the water that is pretty much a droplet of water, and that forms an organic form. Organic forms include you and me, like the sculpture of a person here that's underwater, and this sculpture is found in France. As we see, it's very large compared to the people in this small boat, which would be representative of us compared to the size of the sculpture. Sculptures of human beings or any kind of object, a living object that is not a sphere, cylinder, or pyramid, any such geometric forms is an example of an organic form. So here's an additional time for you to pause the video and to review line, shape, and form before I cover the slides on the element of value. Please take this time to look at your study guide or look at your notes. Review the Quizlet that's posted on the eClass page, just so that you understand the first three elements of line, shape, and form in this first part of our Unit 1, the elements of art.